Good morning. Welcome to the premium and public video discussion for Friday, June 3rd, 2016. It's currently 9 a.m. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into this data. Well, first of all, we have temperatures in the lower to mid 60s over much of the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area. Notice, though, we have temperatures in the upper 60s to lower 70s over central Pennsylvania. We have a marine air mass driven by this easterly wind at around 5 to 10 miles per hour driving into the region, and that leads to a very, very important feature, a stable air mass. And that means that thunderstorm development really won't be all that widespread today. You could see an isolated thunderstorm here and there. But one of the factors I always look for in the morning for the potential for thunderstorms as far as instability in the atmosphere is for mid-level instability. And what I typically want to see is at least marginal instability at the mid-levels, just to kind of set the table. And right now we barely have that. It's marginal, maybe over portions of central Pennsylvania. You have a little bit over New England, but nothing that's really impressive. What I like to see is around 6.5 in the morning hours, and then that kind of stabilized throughout the day. So what that basically tells me is that we have a relatively stable atmosphere with a cold front approaching the region. But we also have a moisture-filled, saturated atmosphere. This is the precipitable water. Basic rule. In the summer, when you're above 1.5, that is supportive for tropical-like downpours. When you get up to 2, that's our tropical depression Bonnie out here in the Atlantic. But some of that moisture is starting to influence the moisture parameters in our atmosphere at the mid-levels. At the lower levels is driven by that easterly wind transporting the marine air mass into the region. So what this basically tells us is that the showers that are developing are going to be capable of heavy downpours, and they'll be capable of rainfall amounts anywhere from a quarter to a half an inch in a very short period of time. With that being said, they'll also be lingering throughout tomorrow. So unfortunately, if you have plans for tomorrow afternoon, say for going to a baseball game or whatever, or even for this evening, do prepare for at least a few showers getting in your way. They're more widespread today because of the approach of the cold front, which is starting to weaken, but they will be isolated to widely scattered tomorrow, which means bring your umbrella with you. You're going to need it every so often. So with that being said, we'll take a look at the radar. You can see some of these little pockets here, heavier downpours, a few isolated thunderstorms built into this rainfall. But for the most part, we're dealing with an environment where we're just dealing with showers and rainfall, no severe weather for today. This weekend, though, that's a different story. When we take a look at the water vapor satellite picture, you can see, first of all, here's our first cold front. Now, this is going to kind of weaken as the primary trough associated with this cold front is lifting up towards the Canadian Maritimes and also towards the St. Lawrence River Valley. So all your lifting is up here, okay? So that means this cold front, the force behind it is pretty much focused up towards New England and up towards the St. Lawrence River Valley and the Canadian Maritimes, and the cold front boundary over portions of Ohio approaching the northern mid-Atlantic will weaken and fall apart and generally become a weak trough. So we're not going to see much in the way of an air mass change. In fact, temperatures by tomorrow will actually be warmer than today. Today we're going to be stuck in the lower to mid 70s because of that marine air mass, that easterly wind flow. By tomorrow we'll be in the upper 70s to lower 80s for highs, which by the way is normal for this time of year. And it will be humid, and you won't really see much in the way of an air mass change, just a wind change. Winds are going to come in from the southwest or the south rather than from the southeast, which is off the Atlantic Ocean. This cold front here will move through on Sunday. This disturbance will collapse, but it's a very important feature, which I'll talk about as far as the tropics in a couple minutes. But this will remain to our south. This cold front will approach for Sunday, and this boundary right here, cold front, warm front, occluded front, the triple point here is going to be something that we're going to have to watch very carefully, because how far north this warm front gets on Sunday morning will tell us where the best potential for severe weather will set up over the northern mid-Atlantic, and also where the best potential for heavy rainfall will set up. So when we dive into the model guidance here, I'm using the European model guidance. The GFS is okay, but it seems a little bit aggressive with the cold bias here. So I'm kind of leaned a little bit more towards a more moderate view with the European guidance, which is also supported by the ensembles. So when I take a look at this pattern, one thing that stands out to me is this negatively tilted trough on Sunday evening and the focus of it. The reason why I bring that up is that during the summer, you don't just look at where the PVA is situated, the positive vorticity advection, but you also look for where is convergence and confluence and divergence and diffluence. What divergence and diffluence is basically a stretching of the atmosphere at the upper levels, and that allows air to rise rapidly. So we're seeing that more so around the St. Lawrence River Valley and towards New England than we are towards the Mid-Atlantic. There is some lifting, but not a great deal, okay? And this is an important factor here because this tells you where the majority of your lifting is becoming focused. It's going to become focused with the occluded front, and that's going to end up more towards New England based on the guidance right now than it would towards the northern Atlantic. So what does that mean at the surface? Well, what that usually sets up here for Sunday afternoon, we'll jump ahead here. Notice the pressure boundaries. You have a trough here, you have a trough back here. So basically what you have here is some sort of occlusion setting up here. You have a warm front boundary here, and you have a cold front boundary back here. Okay, so let's see if I can draw that real fast. So we have our warm front boundary. We have our cold front boundary back here. And then you have your occlusion boundary up here. And so look where all the heavy rainfall is being forecasted on this guidance here as a result. It is being focused over New England. Now why is that the case? Because this is where you have your greatest divergence, diffluence aloft, and also at the surface, this is where you have the majority of your low-level forcing. Now this does not mean that the northern Mid-Atlantic is out of the woods as far as severe weather in any way, shape, or form. We're going to have to watch out for severe thunderstorm potential over southeastern Pennsylvania and southwestern New Jersey. However, for portions of, let's say, northeastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, New York City Metro, New England, I think the threat more is for heavy rainfall. Now, the location of this warm front on Sunday is going to be extremely important because if this warm front lifts further north, then everyone is at a threat for strong to severe thunderstorms. If it remains further south, you end up with a cooler weather pattern, and as a result, you end up with more widespread rainfall via this strong lifting. So it's a bit of a complicated forecast. One thing's for sure on Sunday, it's going to be wet. So if you have outdoor plans, do so on Saturday. It's the better day of the two. And as far as the temperature gradient, you can see that in the model guidance here, where forecasted highs for the New York City Metro are only in the mid-70s, which actually is below normal, while in the Philadelphia Metro, they're in the lower to mid-80s, slightly above normal, and that is basically the demarcation of our warm front. So we'll watch that very carefully on Sunday, as that will tell us the tale of the type of thunderstorms we're dealing with on Sunday, capable of very heavy downpours, frequent lightning, hail, and wind gusts over 40 miles per hour. When we take a look at the pattern overall, the traffic cop is this right here. Okay, so on Sunday, the cold front moves through. We cool down by the time we get to Tuesday. We have temperatures near normal on Monday with temperatures in the upper 70s to lower 80s for lows, lower to mid 60s for lows, upper 70s to lower 80s for highs. Then on Tuesday and Wednesday, we start to cool down significantly with highs more in the lower to mid 70s, which is about 5 to 10 degrees below normal. But then we warm back up, back to near normal again. So what's happening here when we take a look at the temperatures? What's happening here is the back and forth of this trough, okay? When this trough shifts towards the Gulf of Alaska. That shifts the entire pattern, the polar jet stream, because the subtropical jet stream is falling apart because of development of La Nina. So as a result, when this trough shifts towards this portion of the Gulf of Alaska and along the west coast around British Columbia, Canada, that leads to the negative NAO pattern, which is out here, to shift further east, and that allows a ridge to build first over the Mississippi River Valley, up through the Tennessee River Valley, and then into the Mid-Atlantic. And then a trough returns when this redevelops back towards the Aleutian Islands. So when we know this traffic cop, you can kind of understand what the pattern is. It's a very volatile pattern. It's one where you can easily spike up into the upper 80s to lower 90s for a day or two, or even 3 days to make it a heat wave. But then that quickly gets knocked back down with another trough and another round of near to slightly below normal temperatures. And I think we're going to be in this roller coaster back and forth through the entire summer, because La Nina has not become established yet. And even when it does become established in the Pacific, there's still a lag time to influences on the 500 millibar pattern. So we may not actually see the influences of La Nina, true La Nina, until possibly August, maybe not until September, depending on how La Nina develops and evolves and how it influences the upper level winds and mid-level winds. In the meantime, this disturbance is going to be very key because it's going to start to weaken, but it's strong enough to pull this moisture and this little developing area of disturbed weather towards the eastern Gulf of Mexico. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me show you the 500 millibar pattern forecast from the European guidance, and you can kind of see the evolution here. We get a trough that develops in the east, it gives way, a ridge tries to pop, and then another trough comes in right after that. So let's slow this down just a little bit. You can see that trough starting to exit. Here comes our ridge, kind of like a wave pattern. The best way to describe this, if you ever watch someone working out at the gym and they got that rope and they're moving that rope up and down, it's kind of an exercise for your forearms, and it creates a wave on that rope. Or if you're jump roping, you get that wave going, right? That's basically what we're having here. You have the upper level low shaking the rope, the polar jet stream, amplifying it, and what you get are these troughs and ridges just basically riding along the Canadian border, moving through our neck of the woods and leading to cool and active periods of weather, followed by warm stretches where we jump up into the 80s and 90s and then get knocked right back down into the 70s and 80s once again. Is this going to be a summer where it's going to be extremely cool? I don't have any data to support that at this time. The last time we had a summer where it was extremely cool, we had a very interesting solar event, and we also had a very strong high latitude blocking event where the polar vortex, what was left of it in the summer, dropped south. That was in 2012, I believe. When that happened, that's when you had temperatures in the 60s and 70s. I don't see any support for that right now, but what I do see support for is an active pattern with volatile temperatures, and you can see that evolving right in front of you. And the model guidance is going to try to bounce all over the place on this. Okay, you're going to see forecasts coming out there like, oh, it's going to be very well above normal because it takes a 7 to 10 day trend of the temperatures. But when you actually look at the temperatures, what you actually have is a lot of up and down motion in the temperatures. One day it's in the lower 70s, the next day it's in the mid 80s, and you're back into the lower 70s. And that's because of the pattern we're seeing here. That's why you really can't take an average right now in this type of weather pattern, because it really doesn't give you the details of what's happening with this weather pattern. And we can see that at 850 millibars. So that cool air come in, then we warm back right up, and then here comes another shot of cool air once again, and then we warm right back up. So you can see that again. Cool, then we warm back up, and then here comes another cool shot, and then we warm right back up with another surge, and then here comes another cold air right there. So you can kind of see exactly how this is evolving. Meanwhile, the tropics. Told you it was a lot. We have tropical depression Bonnie. It's back. It probably won't last for much longer, but to be honest, it's more developed now than it ever was. It has a Pressure down 3 millibars to 1,006 millibars, and it's moving over the Gulf Stream, so don't be surprised if this intensifies into a tropical storm briefly. What I find very interesting, what impact it will have on the northwestern Atlantic. As far as impacts on our neck of the woods, none, zero, zip, zilch. Could be a little bit more of a more wave action on the New Jersey coast, a little bit stronger riptide possible, but for the most part, it's not going to have much of an impact on our area directly. Indirectly, this little bugger is going to have to be watched to see whether it influences the North Atlantic oscillation, because you're adding latent heat energy. And in the summer, I'm always very cautious of latent heat energy, which is basically energy released by the development of thunderstorms, influencing the polar jet stream, amplifying it, and thus leading to a stronger negative NAO pattern. Which is why, lo and behold, this morning when we take a look at the model guidance for the NAO, what was once a trend towards positive, which we still have a little bit here, now basically shifts right back to a sustained negative NAO pattern. So that's a bit of a change. This is definitely, the overall average here is definitely a change, because the model guidance just yesterday had an almost neutral NAO pattern with the middle of June. And now we're clearly trending towards a more negative idea here. And the reason why is because I think we're seeing more influence from the tropics than what the model guidance was suggesting earlier. And we're also having more influence of a slightly warmer stratosphere and the influence of that on high latitude blocking this summer. So pretty interesting to see how this is changing in response to what's happening in the northwestern Atlantic with Bonnie. Moving forward, this disturbance out here is going to be something we're going to have to watch very carefully. This upper level disturbance will again move along the Gulf Coast here, but weaken steadily. Okay, so the shear associated with this upper level low is expected to decline and weaken. But before it does, though, it will draw this disturbance up into the eastern Gulf of Mexico with some very warm waters and what is expected to be by this weekend favorable conditions for tropical development. Now, currently right now, there is no low-level circulation associated with this cluster of thunderstorms. There is lower pressure, but nothing organized. If we see something organized, which again the model guidance is suggesting, but that's model guidance, we haven't seen any observed development yet of any type of tropical disturbance here, okay? But if it does develop, it's going to be from this cluster of thunderstorms here with this wave. See this tropical wave right here. And you can see the thunderstorms developing, especially on the north end. So we'll see whether or not this actually develops. The model guidance certainly is very, very aggressive with developing a tropical low here, potentially a tropical storm that shoots it through Florida, and then lo and behold, off towards the northwestern Atlantic again, where it could influence our negative NAO pattern, keeping our jet stream rather amplified over the northwestern Atlantic and keeping a cool regime over the eastern United States. Interesting times ahead. So we have a lot of features that we're going to be keeping an eye on over the next couple of days. And I just wanted to show you how all these parts come together and work interactively with each other. It's not just, you don't just look at the Pacific and then just say, well, then the pattern's going to be this because the Pacific says that. You have to look at everything, combine all features. And then when you do that, that's when you get a really good idea of what's happening with this weather pattern. Thank you for following NYNJPA Weather, and I hope you enjoyed this sneak peek of what premium members typically get with this forecast video. Have a wonderful day, and as always, stay safe out there.